Hello, welcome to English 3, Quest 5, Writing Poetry. We're going to go as mentor texts so that we are able to better plan for an individual, unique poem ourselves. This poem can be in addition to or in place of the sonnet that you're being asked to write. You just need to make sure that your teacher is okay with that, so clear it with her before you move forward. I'm going to read exactly what we're doing, and if you'll just follow along on the screen, that would be great. In each of the 5 poems that follow, the adult poet looks back into his or her treasure house of memories and finds an early experience which was troubling or important in some nonverbal way. The poet then finds the language and images to make the experience more tangible and meaningful now that it is understood. So once they become an adult, the speakers pretty much understand what was happening. Using these poems as models, you will first appreciate the accomplishments of the authors, and then you will accomplish your own. You will also learn a basic technique for revising drafts of poems. You will also learn a basic technique for revising new drafts of poems, making them more original and satisfying. First, let's look at the poems below. We'll look at Those Winter Sundays, My Papa's Waltz, Flashcards, and When You Forget to Read Your Gerbil. We're going to go ahead and overlook the portrait, and I'm highlighting it gray so you can see. Alrighty, let's look at our first poem. Okay, to set your purpose for reading and analyzing this poem, remember to think about topics and think about the details that the author includes. So you'll want to, again, think about the topic and the details that the author uses because you will be planning and then drafting your own poem. Let's begin. Sundays, too, my father got up early and put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. Then, with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekday weather, made banked fires blaze. No one ever thanked him. I wake and hear the cold splintering, breaking. When the rooms were warm, he'd call, and slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house. Speaking indifferently to him who had driven out the cold and polished my good shoes as well. What did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices? So if we look at the beginning of the poem, we realize that the father is a dutiful man. He gets up early. He makes sure that there's a fire set, and he warms the house, and no one thanks him, including the speaker in the poem. The speaker would hear the wood splintering and breaking as the fire engulfed it, and he'd slowly get dressed and not rush out because apparently there would be consistent arguments or a consistent source of angst in the house. Finally, when he did come out, he would speak pretty indifferently to his father, who had not only warmed the house so that he could be comfortable, but he polished his shoes. And again, the speaker is thinking back and wondering, what did he know as a kid about duty, responsibility, and being grateful? Perhaps that his father led a lonely life. Now, what you'll want to call attention to is the word office. The author chose that word for a specific reason. It has several meanings. One is a building or room where business is carried out. So on one hand, Hayden could be having his speaker to refer to the relationship between the father and the son as simple business to be carried out, no real relationship, no real depth. Or he could be referring to offices being apparent as being lonely, because an office can also be a position of authority or trust, and we know that parents have that. So it could be lonely being a parent because children never really realize what you do for them, and it causes guilt later for the speaker. And again, we'll look at one more possible meaning of office in the context, and it can be a function or a duty that's assigned to someone. So that would add another layer of depth to think about the father only doing what he did, not out of love, but because it was his duty. He felt like it was his assignment as a father. So again, when you're thinking about planning your poem, you want to think about a topic. You can see that the topic here involves regret based on past memory. And so you might think about a memory from the past that you would want to reflect on for your poem. My Papa's Waltz. Again, you're calling attention to the topic and the details and word choice that the author uses so that you can think about how you're going to develop your idea for your poem. The whiskey on your breath could make a small boy dizzy, but I hung on like death. Such waltzing is not easy. We romped until the pan slid from the kitchen shelf. My mother's countenance could not unfrown itself. The hand that held my wrist was battered on one knuckle. At every step you missed, my right ear scraped a buckle. You beat time on my head with the palm caked hard by dirt, then waltzed me off to bed, still clinging to your shirt. So if we look at this poem, we can tell that there is definitely a tense situation happening. There's a son who obviously loves his father, but the father is both symbolically and physically disturbing. He's disturbing his son. He's disturbing his wife, who is upset with his behavior. He's disturbing the house. It's unsettling to have a drunken stumble happening in the house with a child. The fact that Papa is dancing, so to speak, but the boy has to hold on like death, it really highlights the perception versus reality. While his father believes he's showing his son a good time, his son is actually afraid. So again, in thinking about planning your poetry, there might be a topic that you could focus on where there was a certain perception in your life versus a reality. Of course, it wouldn't have to be sad. It could be something happy. Maybe you made someone think that you were disappointed in something that you were actually elated about. But we'll move on to the third poem so you can look at some other options. Flashcards. In math, I was the whiz kid, keeper of oranges and apples. What you don't understand, master, my father said. The faster I answered, the faster they came. I could see one bud on the teacher's geranium, one clear bee sputtering at the wet pane. The tulip tree always dragged after heavy rain, so I tucked my head as my boots slapped home. My father put up his feet after work and relaxed with the highball and the Life of Lincoln. After supper, we drilled, and I climbed the dark before sleep, before a thin voice hissed numbers as I spun on a wheel. I had to guess. 10, I kept saying. I'm only 10. Now, when you look at Rita Dove's word choice, she calls her father master, which is strongly connected to slavery. So it suggests that there is some type of ownership, an unhealthy sense of ownership over her or over the speaker. She believes her father has a really strong hold on her. Additionally, we see that this is a bittersweet situation. On the one hand, the speaker can enjoy some of the elements of nature, the bud on the geranium, the bee sputtering, the tulip tree. But on the other hand, she is dreaming about giving answers to flashcards. And it is a little bit disturbing when you think about some of the words: sputters, drags, slaps. Those words were used intentionally to suggest a mimicking of perhaps some of the behaviors that were going on in relation to the flashcards. So again, we have another childhood memory, so that could be a source of generating ideas for your poem. But we also have words that are in isolation that have strong connotations